your clothes because you saw an ad on print media through Sabyasachi or something, Janvi?
I should. I don't have the attention span for it.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? But before we befuddle our rapidly growing user base of listeners and viewers, can you make sure that you set it up right? Because what are we talking about? Print versus digital? What exactly are we talking?
Yeah, so recently Sabhyasachi fashion gave a statement. So Sabhyasachi, if the viewers are not, don't know about him, it's one of the biggest fashion label brands, one of the premium brands across the world, especially in India. And Sabhyasachi has recently started pushing more of the print media advertisements rather than the digital first ads.
Yeah.
Sabhyasachi believes, the marketing team or whatever believes that the print media is the one who will take the entire marketing ecosystem forward, and the digital first is coming to an end, most probably
Hmm.
because of the attention span of viewers, or because print media has some kind of a charm or magic that takes you back to the olden days where we used to get all the adverts from DD News or from Times of India and all. So and there has been a recent shift where a lot of the ads, a lot of companies like Flipkart, Xiaomi, they have taken to newspapers to reach the audience. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I think we are definitely seeing a shift. So this is a good platform for us to discuss why the shift is really happening.
If I started ranting about this subject, I think we'll need 5 or 6 LinkedIn lives. So it's really interesting. The weird thing, because it's a multifaceted subject, really. I'll give you a perspective, maybe just to set things off, and maybe we might need to continue this a little later. And this perspective is coming from a very different place, right? And the perspective is that if you look at the way in which horses were used. Horses were first used, you know, for transportation. Okay, and then in war, first of all, then transportation, and they became really popular. And then when the electric car came in, or not electric car, sorry, but when motor car came in, they became smaller, but they were still in use, and they were used for racing, and they were used for polo, so sport and entertainment and stuff like that. So the use cases got reduced.
Right.
They didn't go anywhere, but the use cases got reduced. Now, why is this example important? Because there's this product life cycle, right? Because whenever technology comes in and whenever technology disrupts, what we find is that there's no complete disappearance of what already exists. What happens is that the use cases get reconfigured. And I believe that that may be something that is happening to print media at the moment. Because if I look at what print media is being used for, and all the arguments supporting print media at the moment, they're not the same arguments that were being used for print media before digital came in. Does that make sense?
What were the arguments? Sorry.
So print was all about reach, and print was all about the fact that circulation and reach and all of that. Now that's not talked about
Hmm.
anymore, because digital has gotten in. Now I'm not saying that digital is not having problems, right? And we'll get to that place a little later. But what I'm certainly saying is that the argument for using print is interesting,
Hmm.
because the argument for using print is now, oh, people will have more attention when they're on print. Now my question is to everybody, who are these people? Are they people who are of your generation or a generation younger than yours, or are they people who are your parents or even your grandparents?
Hmm. That's actually,
Does that
yeah, that's true. I mean, with the declining circulation of the print media per se, I think I, at least in my generation, I haven't seen a lot of people who are reading newspapers. Even if they are, they
yeah,
have an app for it. You won't read Economic Times in a print version. You will just go to the app. And if you are doing advertisements on Economic Times app, then it's basically digital first, right?
exactly, right. It is digital first. And the weird thing is, I recently went to Pune, right? You and I have spoken when I was in Pune, and my parents' home, so it does get its newspapers. and I really enjoyed the feel of a newspaper. It was fun to read, and so it brought back nostalgia. And I read the comics and the fucking horoscope and everything else, right? And it was fun, right? So, and I had Times of India, Indian Express, and even the Marathi newspapers that were coming in. What I noticed about my parents, they were newspapers as well. They were going on YouTube for their news, or something else for their news, and they were just reading it for Sudoku maybe, something as banal as the Mirror, or the local news.
Right.
So if you look, even in that generation, I asked them this question: Do you read the newspaper? I said no, hardly, because I was trying to introduce my dad to Santosh Desai's brilliant column in the Times of India called City City Bang Bang. And he said, I've never read about him. So I was like, you have to. He writes really well. I said, yeah, I hardly ever read the Times of India. So it's true. And he's 70 plus,
Mm.
right? So he's somebody who's not reading. So even in that generation, it has gone down. So I just wanted to focus on the argument. And now the third argument that I've got against this whole thing is SabhyaSachi. Now, he belongs to a sector which might be print friendly. Now, that and it makes actual sense for Flipkart if it's trying to expand its category to try and reach out to people who are not really on
Yeah.
Flipkart. Because, okay, again, so there might be some use cases across sectors
Mm.
which will be more powerful in print media. But if you say, oh, print media is thriving and all of that, sorry, I have my concerns about that kind of statement. It comes from people who are older. It comes from people who are hanging on by the coattails towards an older sort of media place. And sorry, as I said, I could go rant on and on about this.
Yeah, I actually completely agree. Even in my house, the only two people who read the newspaper is me and my grandfather. Everybody else just
Hmm.
shies away being the keyword.
Yes,
And
I know what you mean.
yeah, and I think now if Flipkart is throwing off these ads, right, it doesn't really make sense to place an advertisement in Times of India, because or an Economic Times, because these are the newspapers that everybody who's at least aware of Flipkart is already is they are the readers of these newspapers, right? Now, if the same advert is
Yes.
placed on in newspapers that maybe penetrate to the tier 3 4 cities of India, that aren't very active on Instagram and all other digital places, then maybe it makes sense because you're trying to gain penetration. But why are you telling me I'm already seeing your ad on Hotstar 20 times a day, right? So
Yeah.
it
No,
doesn't.
I'm not convinced about the tier two and tier three. You've convinced me about how tier two and tier three are also seeing winds of change in our earlier LinkedIn
Yeah,
lives, right? So what I do see is in tier two and tier three, people are so much on YouTube and so much on digital themselves that I do think that a lot of persuasion might be happening over there. And again, it probably is restricted to a few sectors and to older generations. What I do think, and maybe we'll leave it here and maybe we can continue it for a further episode. What I do think is that the digital media, various social platforms, have not done themselves any glorious service by projecting themselves the way they have right now. Now, what I mean by this is that they have always tried to fight on reach. Okay, and now there's a certain playbook that you'll see immediately. They've tried to fight reach, they've tried to fight on costs,
yeah,
they've tried to fight on efficiencies, and that is precisely the wrong way in which you should look at digital first brand
yeah,
building. So their focus skew has been towards performance marketing, and then the wells have run dry and performance marketing is not working and blah blah
yeah,
blah. So we've set ourselves up for failure as far as digital is concerned by kind of harping on the wrong
yeah,
metrics. But right now, what we probably might need to do, and this might be where we can stop and maybe look at a future episode for this, is how do you look at digital differently in a way wherein it's not focused only on cost efficiencies and effectiveness.
yeah. The brands that would get away from the noise, brands that can actually stop hounding people with their
Yeah.
advertisements and go into the attention economy might actually succeed in the coming years of digital.
Well said. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Well said. So thank you for stirring up this hornet's nest. I'm sure we'll get a lot of hate mail because of all the comments, especially all my old friends and colleagues in print and print media. And trust me, I can go on like this about other legacy media too, like maybe films and maybe some other things, and we can do various episodes around the same. But right now, I think we should stop while we're ahead and stop before another person's like, these guys don't know anything. And and print media rocks. Okay, pal, print media rocks. Let's just say, if you see this bite, it's good.
All hail cancel culture.
All hail. Okay, whatever. On that happy note, let's see each other next week then.